Hi, it's Reverend Tony Suarez. I'm here to discuss with you, sort of give you a primer as to some of the chapters in the book. And the book, again, I repeat, is What's the Law Got to Do with It? Understanding Religious Freedom Law. The controversy in our nation, which is going on to this day, and it was at the time we founded our Constitution to this day. So I'm hoping that this is helpful to you as you try to understand what's going on in the world. And I wrote this book so that it would be not like a law school treatise book that I use when I teach at the law school, but something that everyone else can understand. And so in the previous chapter we talked about the free exercise clause and the establishment clause of the First Amendment. And I thought is that we talk about the certain rights of religious organizations and the right of association, because that is another implied right, the right of association. So the question I have for us here is, can religious organizations discriminate? Well, it seems to be that if you have a right of association, you have a right to get together with people of similar. Why wouldn't you not have the right to discriminate? If you want a Christian organization, why would you want to allow a Jewish person into the organization? If you want to be talking about principles and you have actions that you may not want. The question is, therefore, do you have the right to discriminate? And generally the answer is yes, you do have the right to discriminate, unless you're providing a public service. So once you get into the question of whether or not this organization, which could be a religious organization, is now providing a public service, now that becomes more delicate question for the courts to decide as to whether or not a state law, which allows, for example, let's say the Catholic Charities, is a religious organization, provides multiple services to the poor, and provides schools. You have, Catholic University. I went to Fordham University, Catholic University. I went to St. John's University, Catholic University. Can they discriminate and say, no, we're not going to allow anyone who's not Catholic or receive our services or go to our schools? That is discussed in detail in the textbook, and where we try to discuss and to make that logic. When can and how far does your religious freedom go as to allowing you to exercise your right to association? And generally, again, go into the book to get the specific details so you can learn it in detail. But generally, the answer is going to be, if you're providing a public service for which the government is giving you public funds to provide those public services, then your right to discriminate who can receive and maybe even who can participate as an employee is going to be limited. Each circumstance is going to be different, so you have to look at each case based on how much a requirement. For example, the Catholic University, when they hire a teacher, whether or not they're going to force her to undertake Catholic procedures, like going to Mass or participating in services of the Catholic Church, or whether or not they're going to require the people whom they service to be Catholic. So that, how much? Is it okay to say you're Catholic but not really go to church? How far do you have to prove your religious base in order to get into the question of whether or not the state can force you to associate yourselves with people who are not in the same religious affiliation? Now, this is important because everyone more, and today you have religious organizations taking over the functions of government. The government is trying to control its budget. They're offsetting a lot of their work, like for example attending to the poor and homeless shelters, to religious organizations. And the question of how far the government can get into the business of the religious organization is a subject of great amount of litigation. I hope that within this chapter 7 of our book, that you can get a better understanding of what tests the courts are using. How do the judges determine how much is too much? Thanks.